Okay, good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty, and it's time for another comic book review. We're doing Hotline Miami Wildlife today. As I mentioned in some of the stuff talking about this one, I've never played Hotline Miami. I've seen my friends play it, which sounds so sad. Like the moment I said that out loud, I do apologize. It makes me sound like a very lowly guy. But I've been around to some friends' house when they had it on and they're playing it, and I can see the appeal of it. It's a top-down shooter. It reminds me an awful lot of the GTA games. Brutal, but it's the thing that kind of gets me about the video game is it seems to be that you die a lot, but it's not really the end of the world. It just gives you a chance to try again, and the aim is to basically just keep going over and over and again until you get through everything and murder everybody. Now, I have no idea if there's any kind of plot behind that. No clue whatsoever if there is a reasoning why you're doing all these murders, if the people you're murdering deserve it, or if you're the villain of the story. No clue whatsoever. So I figured, well, hey, they're doing a comic book about it. This will actually have story. This will get into what is going on. Brilliant. And it starts when the guy's pretty much murdered everyone in the house, and he just gets the last guy who's tried to escape on a speedboat because it's 1980s Miami. So, everyone's got a speedboat. And it's like, oh, right, okay, so we're just going to drop in and there's going to be a whole bunch of murdering going on. That's pretty much exactly what I didn't want. What I wanted was to know what the hell is going on in this world. It's issue 1 of, I think, a 6-part mini, and it's like, well, you've already just dropped me straight into it. But the more I read it, the more I realized, no, that was done on purpose, because the fans of the video game, what they want is a whole bunch of murders, and it absolutely delivers on that one. Even though you don't really see much in the way of action, because let's face it, trying to recreate a very fast, frenetic, kind of tactical-based shooter in a comic book isn't necessarily going to be easy. It's certainly not going to be something which I think is going to be worth the amount of effort you put into it. Because you want that, you can just play the video game. So what's left is the story. And then you start getting it. It does a time jump backwards a couple of months. And you discover the guy who's going to be wearing that rather fetching hat. Or, well, mask, I suppose. But in my head, it's a different kind of hat you can just wear. And it's basically then kind of weirdly going into some ideas of war propaganda. The fact that at the time in American history, everyone thought the Ruskies were coming, and that was the big threat, and it allowed them to be jingoistic and racist. Just like anyone can be about anything, because it's usually just kind of propaganda out there to give people a reason to be patriotic and make sure that they're doing the right thing. And if you're hating other people, chances are you're going to be fine with what your country does to them. This kind of stuff carries on throughout quite a lot of American history, and there's an awful lot of that kind of stuff that you get riffed on here. Like, they don't mind showing homelessness in the streets, whereas people are still going to clubs and that kind of thing, which again is just kind of a normal thing. It does feel like it's a cyclical story, which is great. But what you still don't get, even though there's an awful lot of story in there, is exactly why this guy donating to a Patriot Alliance cause, because he's terrified of the Russians, ends up with him wearing a mask with 2 guns, murdering a bunch of people in a house in Miami. In fact, the entire story kind of leads you to believe that it's just like an inevitability. He gets phone calls from random people because he donated money to this organization, basically telling him it's like, yeah, so because of that, you're going to keep helping us, and we're now going to send you a mask and some guns, and now you're going to go to this place, and you're going to do what needs to be done when you get there. But there's no middle point between, and that it now makes sense that you're going to do lots of murders. At no point does it even make it obvious that the people in the house are Russians. They look and dress like 1980s Miami folk, from anything I've seen of movies and TV shows about that time anyway. And I went to Miami in the early 90s. But, it doesn't tie those two disparate things together. It's not to say it's not done really well. I actually quite enjoyed reading it as a story. The characters are interesting. You get some nice little detail going in there. You get some nice little tastes of life in the 80s. They do in quite interesting ways. Don't get me wrong. It almost feels like reference humor, but not quite. There's a bit where it's just him waiting until the time he's supposed to go out and visit the house. At this point, he doesn't know he's doing all the murders, although he's got guns, and that's the page they give you. And I like that. That is, not only is it a nicely laid out page, but it definitely sets it in the 80s, but it does so without really forcing the TV shows and the music and the movies, everything that's on there down your throat. It's just, if you recognize what that watch is, you'll kind of be able to frame that at a certain time. And it's all it really, really needed. But while I'm talking about the pages there, I've got to say the artwork is pretty damn good. It's simplistic, but there is a genuine love put into it. You can feel there's scenes where you just get like an aftermath of the action sequence, and it's just the guy walking around the house, basically making sure there's nobody else left alive, and just the odd little bits of detail, like chairs that have been pushed slightly out of whack as he's been working his way through the house. You don't necessarily see him do that, but you see the aftermath of it, and so it's obviously been thought about. So there's a lot of love put into this one. Whoever's done this is clearly a big fan of the video game. So whoever, Chimolo and Farina, the people who've done it. Can you enjoy it without playing the video game? Yes, because I've never played the game, and it still makes me want to carry on. Those gaps I was talking about, that jump from like, well, he's donated to some patriot organization, doesn't like the Russians, to he's now done a bunch of murders. There's more going on in that story, and I think spreading it out and actually making you like invested in solving why that's happened could be really good. I just hope they eventually get around to telling us about it. Otherwise, it's just going to be several more comic books of 80s suits and people getting murdered. Yeah, not that bad anyway. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye!